Today's letter was written by a doctor, not a fisherman, not a tax collector, not a Pharisee turned apostle, a physician, the only gospel writer who was not Jewish, the only New Testament writer who was not Jewish, period. His name was Luke. Welcome back to Letters from Home. I'm Hank Garner, and this is Tuesday, The Sender. Yesterday we read Luke 15, 3 parables, 1 accusation, 1 answer. The setup was Jesus eating with tax collectors and sinners, and the Pharisees complaining about it. The 3 parables are his response. Today we sit with the man who wrote it down. We don't know a lot about Luke. The New Testament mentions him by name 3 times. Each time, he's identified as a companion of Paul. Colossians chapter 4, verse 14 calls him the beloved physician. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 11 mentions him as the only one who stayed with Paul at the end. Philemon, verse 24, lists him as a fellow worker. That's about all we know directly, but we can infer more. Luke was a Gentile. We know this because in Colossians 4, when Paul lists his co-workers, he separates them into 2 groups: the Jewish co-workers and the others. Luke is in the others. He was a Greek. Luke was educated. The Greek in his gospel and in the book of Acts, which he also wrote, is some of the finest in the New Testament. He uses medical terminology that other gospel writers do not. He uses literary devices. He writes prefaces that match the style of ancient historians like Thucydides and Polybius. Luke was a careful historian. His own preface, Luke 1, verses 1 through 4, tells us how he worked. Listen to him introduce his gospel. Inasmuch as many have taken in hand to set in order a narrative of these things which have been fulfilled among us, just as those who from the beginning were eyewitnesses and ministers of the word delivered them to us, it seemed good to me also, having had perfect understanding of all things from the very first, to write to you an orderly account, most excellent Theophilus, that you may know the certainty of those things in which you were instructed. Read what he tells us he did. He says many have written before him. He said he has consulted eyewitnesses. He says he has investigated carefully. He says he is writing an orderly account. He has done the work. He's writing to one specific person, most excellent Theophilus. The name means lover of God. We don't know if Theophilus was a real person or if the name is a literary device addressing every reader who loves God, but the address tells us something about Luke's gospel. It's written to a Gentile audience. It's written with care. It's written to give the reader confidence that what they believe is grounded in something that actually happened. Now Luke 15. Of the 4 Gospels, only Luke contains all 3 of these parables. The lost sheep is also in Matthew chapter 18, but the lost coin and the lost son are unique to Luke. The trilogy as a unit exists nowhere else. Why is that significant? Because Luke's gospel has particular concerns. Luke writes about people the other gospels mention less often. Luke writes about outsiders, about the poor, about women, about Samaritans, about tax collectors, about sinners. Luke gives us the Good Samaritan, Luke gives us Zacchaeus and the sycamore tree. Luke gives us the woman who anointed Jesus' feet. Luke gives us Mary's song, the Magnificat. Luke gives us the road to Emmaus. Luke gives us the thief on the cross who is told, "Today you will be with me in paradise." And Luke gives us Luke chapter 15. This is the gospel for outsiders. This is the gospel for the ones who think they are not welcome. This is the gospel for everyone who has ever wondered if there's room at the table. The chapter we're sitting with this week is the heart of it. Now the setting. Luke 15, verse 1 again. Then all the tax collectors and the sinners drew near to him to hear him. The tax collectors and the sinners. Those two groups are named together. Tax collectors were Jews who worked for Rome, collecting taxes from their own people. They were hated. The sinners were the religiously unclean, people who had been written off by the religious establishment by their behavior or their circumstance. And they were drawing near to Jesus to hear him. That's the picture. A circle of people who had been told by their religion that they were not welcome, sitting around a teacher who was telling them they were. And Jesus was eating with them, sharing the table. The Pharisees and scribes are watching. They complain. And Jesus responds with 3 parables. Why 3 parables instead of an argument? Because the Pharisees did not need more theology. They needed to see something. They needed to feel something. Stories do what arguments cannot. Stories speak past the defenses and land in the gut. So Jesus tells them about a shepherd who loses one sheep and goes after it. He tells them about a woman who loses one coin and sweeps the house until she finds it. And then he tells them about a father who has 2 sons, and one of them leaves, and one of them stays. And we'll spend tomorrow with that story. But hear what Luke is doing as a writer. Luke is the Gentile physician, the outsider, the careful historian who was not there for any of it. He's gathered the stories from eyewitnesses. He's put them in order. And when he gets to this moment in Jesus' ministry, he gives us all 3 parables, the full trilogy. He doesn't abbreviate. He doesn't pick the most famous one. He gives us all 3. Why? Because Luke, the outsider, is writing for outsiders, and he wants every reader to hear all 3. He wants them to feel the escalation. He wants them to know that the God who seeks the sheep is the same God who sweeps the floor for the coin, who is the same Father who runs to the Son. 3 parables, 1 God, looking for what is lost. That's the writer of Luke 15. Tomorrow we tell the 3rd parable, the one most of us think we know. There will be more mail tomorrow. Join me at hanksbiblestudy.com for more Bible studies, devotionals, and resources to help strengthen your faith.